Welcome and hello again, Storytide people. I'm Charlie. Let this be where you come to take a break, to hear stories from across the web meant to bring you hope for humanity. And if you love these stories, remember to like, subscribe, and comment. Let's begin, shall we? This story comes to us from the marriage subreddit from Tall Description, and it is simply titled 33 Years. Married at 18 years old and had 3 sons by the time I was 23. When I met my wife, she was 5 foot tall, 106 pounds, and an absolutely stunning figure. Wow, was I lucky. I was a very skinny, young, late teenager and fell in love with someone who I thought was out of my league. As the years progressed and as I became valuable, in terms of how other women might see me, physically fit, very good paying job, self-confidence, etc., my wife physically gained weight and wasn't as attractive in a traditional sense. She developed some insecurities 10 years into our relationship because I think she just felt like maybe I would stray. Maybe I would not see her as attractive as I once did. Maybe I would not think she was just as beautiful she was when I met her. Her additional 45 pounds didn't help her self-confidence. And certainly, getting older is sometimes viewed as a bad thing by women. 33 years later, she is still the most attractive woman I know. I make sure I tell her she is beautiful at least once a week, in different ways. We hang out and enjoy each other, our children are now grown and have families of their own, and we find ourselves in our very early 50s, with good incomes and retirement within 5 years on the horizon. I often read these posts and oftentimes I see myself in these marriages as a progress from year 1 to year 10, 20, and more. I guess my point is, love is universal, and when you love someone and care for someone, all of the outside stuff is just noise. 2 committed people in relationships must be able to block those outside influences, because I will say that you will eventually get to a point where all of the fighting and various things that can ruin your marriage just seems so pointless. Men, please accept your wives for who they are and let them win an argument. Even if you are right, lose 1 or 2. It's okay. When you lose an argument, you win in so many more ways. What I thought was important 15 to 20 years ago, that I must really show her she is wrong with insert topic here. Looking back, it was a waste of energy. I'm not talking about serious things, but if you are a husband or a wife and you are reading this, I bet you know exactly what I'm talking about. We will oftentimes argue about the dumbest literally. Most of our arguments aren't because it is about something so crucial to our marriage that it's worth the fight. Oftentimes, it's over a color of a spare bedroom, a 3rd row in an SUV, whether or not my shirt looks too small, whether or not we should have 2 starches with dinner. Within those little arguments, there is life, there is happiness. We laugh at things that we used to fight about. We hold hands more, we hug more, we caress more, and we certainly laugh a lot more. We are kids again. We don't hopscotch, but the feeling in our hearts certainly feels that way. I only wish that my life on this earth was much longer because it would give me a chance to love her longer. That is all. Those of you whom are married, hug your spouse a little longer today. Hug her the way you did when you first met. Treat him like your boyfriend or girlfriend for just 1 evening, and let him have his argument. You're right, honey. I never thought of it that way. I was wrong today. You made a valid point and I learned something. Just my 2 cents. Such wise advice from a man who has walked the walk and has experience in long-term relationship. It's refreshing to see a relationship like this that is loving and kind. Honestly, I think it's far more common to see examples of drama-filled relationships. Not to say this couple never faced any hardships. I imagine they did, and they used those times to grow together. In the entertainment scape, maybe this kind of story is considered boring, but I think true, sustained, lasting, healthy love is sometimes just a little mundane and frankly boring. So it just doesn't get talked about as much as all the drama. But I think this kind of love is beautiful, and I, for one, want to see more examples like this. Let's see what some commenters had to say. Looks like Batty Twinkie agreed. They said, right, Reddit's usually a drama buffet. Then OP drops this wholesome masterpiece like the Mr. Rogers of marriage. Didn't think I needed it. Turns out I did. Peach Glow says, totally with you in a sea of drama. This one just hits different. It's a reminder that lasting love isn't loud. It's steady, patient, and deeply intentional. Here for the drama says, I was fully expecting another "my wife gained weight and I don't find her attractive anymore" post. Was pleasantly surprised to find I was wrong. OP responded to say, I'm glad. I'll take her extra 45 pounds and I love it. To me, she is so attractive. I don't see perhaps what I would have seen 30 years ago. My eyes are tainted for who she is now. That being said, I still think she's physically sexy as hell. I love her body and I always tell her. Hot Mess Mama said, won't lie, I was hesitant on reading this, but man, I'm so happy I did. Been with my husband for 11 years. Should be 15, but it took us 4 years to end up together after meeting. Maybe I will surprise him and let him take the winning trophy in our next argument. Reading this just reminds me to show my love for him and appreciation for everything he does, even more so. Thank you for that. Series Deep says, this was a great read and I agree with all you've said. Married to my wife 20 years and the love only grows stronger each day. Every day, I think of something to do for my wife to make her feel special. We also try and go on a date every week or two. If you become complacent, that is when problems come up. I really liked your point about the arguments, and we also have really trivial arguments, and I wouldn't remember them. As the years go by, the relationship changes with kids moving out and looking forward to traveling and spending more time with my wife. Thanks for your lovely read. Agreed. This was such a lovely little read. It made me happy and warmed my heart some. This story comes to us from the relationships subreddit from Avix. The other day I, 29 female, discovered my now ex-boyfriend, 27 male, texted another woman while drunk, then discovered he was meeting strippers his best friend found at work. Then found out he was trying to get with a woman at his best friend's work, all while I was very sick at home with COVID. This is my second long-term relationship that has ended because of cheating. I clearly know how to pick them. But feeling cynical about love and relationships, please give me hope that the good ones are real and not everyone cheats. All I can find are stories of the bad. TLDR, my boyfriend cheated and I feel like all men cheat, so please prove me wrong with the story of your significant other being good to you. Dear listener, I know what you're thinking. What? This is not heartwarming. This is the opposite of that. Right, I agree. This story is actually a little heartbreaking. But wait, there's more. It's what people told her that'll bring us some hope. And here's what they had to say. Venari Ash said, I have loads. My husband spent an entire day searching every grocery store he could last year to find a single yellow dragon fruit. Just because I was bedridden after a bad car accident and had a craving for one. I just made an offhand comment saying I would love a bowl of watermelon and yellow dragon fruit before I drifted back off to sleep. I was on pain meds that knocked me out hard. About 9 hours later, he was waking me up with a bowl of watermelon chunks and 2 halves of a whole yellow dragon fruit. There's also the time he drove over an hour in horrendous traffic just to deliver a jacket to me at my office because he thought I might get a little chilly with how cold it was that day. He tries to take my car to fill up my gas tank whenever it gets low so I won't have to worry about it. I usually get to it before he does, but he checks it every day, just in case. The first time he went to a bookstore with me, he didn't know just how much I love books. I split off almost immediately. He found me about 15 minutes later and I had already accumulated a stack of 32 books I wanted. He thought I was joking for a moment, then realized I was absolutely serious. I told him I wasn't intending to purchase them all right then and there, but I would over time. That I was just going to note them down in my little tiny notebook that I carry in my bag for later reference. So he started taking pictures of the stack, each individual book's front, back, if it had a summary, and spine, while asking me about them. When I started putting them back in their proper places, he collected a few he thought I seemed the most excited for and purchased them while I was distracted. He ran out to his car and placed them in the passenger seat for me to find when we went to leave. Sometimes I wake up to little love notes on my desk in our home office, and they always start my day off right. I still have every single love note. He's a sleep talker, so sometimes I'll get up in the middle of the night to go pee, and he'll just thank me for being in his life and say he loves me while he's still clearly asleep. Other times, it's just gibberish or something not so profound. There have been a couple of nights he called me an ex-employee's name and fired me. He learned how to do a few fancy nail art things to make me feel pretty during that time after the above-mentioned car accident. These are just the small things I can type out while half asleep and on mobile. They're not all bad, and they won't all hurt you. Unfortunately, a large portion are bad and will hurt you, but there are genuinely good ones out there. You gotta keep your head up. See? I told you this was going to be heartwarming. Let's see what others had to say. The littlest baby Red said, I have a few. When I'm having a hard time sleeping, my partner will just talk me to sleep. Hearing someone talk has become necessary over the years for me to fall asleep. TV, movies, videos, audiobooks, anything really as long as someone is talking. But it's so much different when he talks. He will talk about the things he's passionate about, the games he's played he enjoys, movies I haven't seen he thinks I'd enjoy, funny stories about him and his friends. Hearing him and seeing his face light up as he talks is one of the greatest things. When he's sleeping, he reaches out for me every night. He will just grab onto me. On the late nights I can't sleep, I will just sit in bed and he'll be holding my leg or my arm or my side, or just be resting his hand on my head, looking over and seeing his face so peaceful while he holds on to me makes me fall in love with him all over again. When I come home from being out, when I walk in the door, I get a hug and a kiss, and he asks me about how my day went and if I did anything fun. While I'm talking, his whole face lights up when I tell him how much I enjoyed my day. When I'm stressed, he will spend the entire day being a goofball to get me to smile and lighten my mood. I've always said he doesn't need to, but he insists on it because all he wants to do is make me feel good and see me smile. He will plan a dinner date at home. I come into the kitchen, he seats me, lights candles, pretends to be a server, gets us something to drink. He goes back and forth, sitting in front of me, talking to me and to the server about what we'd like, getting back up and being the server and answering himself. Go to make our dinner and bring it to the table. He'll be goofy the entire time to make me laugh. I love it more than any date we've gone on or could go on. That's what I can think of at the moment, but they're the things that stand out the most. I hope you find someone who will make you happy. There is definitely someone out there who will. Just keep looking and don't give up. OP responded, so cute! Your relationship sounds so fun. Thank you so much for this. And the littlest baby Red answered, thank you so much for saying so. I'm happy to share. He's a really funny guy, and he is always trying to make every day fun for us. It means the world to me he does. I did think of another, and I'm surprised I didn't think of it sooner. He goes out of his way to do things for me just because he likes knowing he makes me happy. I've been pretty sick for a while, and even though I'm capable of doing things, he insists he wants to do them so I can rest. He'll make or get my favorite comfort foods when he knows it's a particularly bad day. He's stayed up through bad nights when I'm really sick so I don't have to deal with it alone. He rubs my legs and feet when I'm standing for too long, and he'll massage my back to help with the pain I get. He's gone as far as to help me wash up and brush my hair when I feel too weak. No matter how much I protest it, he always insists it's not a big deal because he just wants me to be happy and comfortable. Sometimes I worry I take him for granted because he does so much for me. He never lets me worry about it long though. He's most definitely going to see this, and I hope when he does, he knows I love and appreciate him and what he does just as much as he loves and appreciates me, maybe more. Lacrimosade said, not my relationship, but a couple I'm very good friends with had their wedding reception a year after their small backyard wedding due to COVID. Drinks flow throughout the night. Both of them have a little too much to drive safely, but the groom ends up a bit drunker than his wife and needs a little help getting to the car. The bride is saying goodbye to some people, and her mother is wrangling a grumpy puppy into his crate. So the groom's sister and I are taking him to the car when he starts grumbling just the most adorable Where's bride's name? I miss her. Is the dog giving her trouble? Let me go back and help. I love her so much, you guys. She's so great. Just an endless stream of that kind of stuff. The next morning, the bride sent me a bunch of screenshots of some drunk text and Facebook posts that he made during the reception about how much he loves her and how lucky he feels to have her in his life. This guy is the most introverted, private person I know. Just an absolute grumpy old man in a young dude's body type of guy. And he not only drunk posted his sappy drunk thoughts about how much he loves his wife all over the internet, he left them all alone after he sobered up and took the light-hearted ribbing from his relatives in stride because he loves his wife. A cyber citizen posted a short one. My partner falls asleep holding my hand, and when my arm gets tired and I try to move my hand, they squeeze because they don't want to let go. If I then put my hand back in theirs, they let out a happy sigh while asleep. Frogging said, my girlfriend is the sweetest person I have ever met. She's so thoughtful of others and so kind, and it warms my heart. Sometimes, if we're grocery shopping, and I'm looking at some fancy grapes or something that looks nice but I decide is too expensive, she'll put it in her cart without me realizing and buy it for me. We don't live together, so we go grocery shopping together but buy our own things. When we were visiting my parents recently, we went to a farmer's market and she saw some nice flowers she wanted to buy for my mom. When my brother did a favor for us, she was the one who thought to bring him some beers as a thank you. When I've had a long day at work or a really busy week, she will invite me over and cook for me while I work on some reading or writing. And maybe the cutest part is, anytime I say, "You're so sweet," or "You're amazing," or something, she will look at me and say, "It's just normal." And I'll stare back at her and say, "No, it's not normal." And she will fake surprise like, "Wow, I'm so not normal." And she's so cute. Kitty Foreman is God said, my boyfriend and I were roommates for over a year before we started dating, as we were both in relationships at the time of moving in. Once we started dating, it was amazing. Cuddling every night and great, My ex couldn't keep up with my libido, and my now boyfriend gives me a run for my money. We were spoiled rotten getting to see each other every day, but we were able to maintain our independence. Usually did our own thing during the day, schoolwork or errands, but spent the evenings and nights together. When it came time for us to move out of our student house, I was upset, as we would now be living an hour away from each other. The morning of move-out, as we waited for our parents to drive up, we were chatting in my room, and he got a text that his parents were 5 minutes out. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I don't want to move away from you." And of course, I started crying too. I've had issues with exes not being a motive at all, and I felt unwanted as a result. And just that reaction alone made me feel so appreciated and loved and wanted. I dated someone for 3.5 years who wasn't a bad boyfriend by any means, but he just wasn't the right person for me, and the relationship had run its course. I had felt trapped because I thought I just wouldn't find anyone that was right for me. And then someone who had been right in front of me for over a year ended up being the most amazing and supportive boyfriend I've ever had. If I've learned anything, it's that you shouldn't settle on things you value, like validation or intimacy level or anything like that. Someone who will sweep you off your feet is gonna come into your life one day, and this ex will be a distant memory. I'm so sorry you've gone through this twice. Cheating is really shitty and makes you feel so insecure. All I can say is it's a problem with him, not with you. And don't let jerks ruin dating for you. I wish you the best in the next few weeks. Take time for yourself. Do things you feel you couldn't while in this relationship. And make sure to stay close with friends and don't push them away. Another cyber citizen wrote, "My boyfriend called my phone to help me find it last night and accidentally left a voicemail of a snippet of our casual conversation afterwards, part of which included him calling me beautiful, and you can hear him kissing my face. And me being embarrassed in the voicemail, I saved it to my phone so I can listen to it whenever I want to know." A comment from Business Loquat says, "My first husband was a horrible and abusive person. I have also had other childhood trauma. I was scared to tell my now husband about these things because I thought they made me broken and he wouldn't want to be with me. I told him and he held me and said, 'I am so sorry those things happened to you.' And that was it. He has never judged or made me feel less than. He always validates my feelings and listens. He never tries to use my past against me. Some men will for sure. If I bring something up or he knows something is a trigger, he will say, 'It is okay to talk about this.' I have always felt completely safe with him. I know he will always be honest with me. When we first got together, I had some credit card debt left over from my divorce. He offered to loan me the money to pay it off, and I was very, very uncomfortable with that idea. He said I could pay him interest if I wanted, so I did. 1%. He said he just wanted me to be in a better financial situation, and he knew the debt had a large interest rate. He taught me so many things about money management and investing that I had no understanding of before I met him. Without that huge debt, I was able to save money and go back to school to get my master's degree and get a much better job. He fully supported me financially during that time. We were not married then. He always wants to make me laugh. After nearly 20 years, he still texts me from work with little funny sayings, or just asks me how I'm doing. I am secure in the knowledge that he loves me and wants me to be happy, and the trust we have in each other is the foundation of our relationship, and really, the cornerstone of my life. I could go on, but the last thing is that he really helped to free me from a lot of the negativity and fear I was holding on to from my past. I remember being upset my ex sending me annulment paperwork so that he could get remarried in the church, and I was like, ugh, I don't want to fill this out and rehash the nightmare that was my previous marriage. And my now husband said, "Babe, you're an adult. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, so just don't. You don't have to do what he wants anymore." He has basically helped me to be myself. A person I thought was lost. There are some real tear-jerkers in the comments of this one. I tried to share the warmest and the fuzziest ones. The ones that gave me hope for love and felt kind of like a fairy tale. I don't think that there's anything wrong with being single, and there certainly are plenty of relationship stories that are not warm and fuzzy, but I hope that this little snapshot gave you some hope for humanity and adds a little bright spot to your life. If you have had some not so great relationships, I also hope that it serves as an example of what loving, kind, gentle, nurturing relationships look like. And if you've made it this far, go ahead and drop a heart emoji or let us know what you thought. And as always, thank you, dear Storytide people, for your support as this channel learns and grows. This story comes to us from the marriage subreddit from Pickled Carrot, and it is titled, "My Husband Doesn't Know That I Know What He's Up To." My 33 female, husband 34 male, and I had our first baby back in June of last year. My husband's aunt gifted our son a lovely, chunky, knitted blanket. The blanket is so soft, and I have made multiple comments about how I would like to find a full-size blanket just like it because it is so cozy and I'm kind of jealous of my baby. Well, this past weekend, my husband snuck off to the store. He refused to tell me where he was going and why, but I later found a plastic bag with the logo of a local crafting store. That evening, DH, and I'm just going to guess that DH means dear husband, DH stated that he would like to have an hour of alone time every night after our son goes to sleep. He stressed that he would not like to be disturbed, but if I needed him, then I could call or text him. I agreed to this because we are both adjusting to having very little me time since the birth of our son. Last night, during his alone time, our son started crying. I checked the baby monitor and saw that he had simply lost his pacifier and was going back to sleep. However, the baby monitor also shows part of our son's room, not just his crib. In the corner of his room, I saw my husband sitting on the floor with a bunch of chunky yarn in front of him. I turned the volume up and heard that he was watching a YouTube video on how to finger knit. This sweet man is making me a blanket. He absolutely loves surprising me, but is terrible at keeping secrets. I just know that he is going to slip up and accidentally mention something about the blanket at some point. I plan on acting clueless so that I will still be surprised when he gives it to me. I just love him so much, and I'm so delighted that he's learning a new skill so I can have a custom blanket. Okay, so this is adorable. As someone who loves all craft things and has recently, maybe mistakenly, undertaken crocheting a blanket for the first time, it's going to be so much work. I super appreciate how thoughtful this effort is. And to fill you up with warm fuzzies, let's see what some commenters had to say. An anonymous cyber citizen said, "OMG, the title makes this sound like it could be something else, but it's so cute. Also, why do men seem to always forget about the baby monitor?" Fuzzy Propagation said, "Because he isn't being deceptive. If anything, he has allowed her to know that he isn't up to anything by being in the view of the baby monitor. He's being very transparent about his surprise gift, and I love this for OP. It's something I will steal and do for my partner when we have kids." To that, OP said, "So, he just came home from work and mentioned his alone time again? To keep up the facade, I asked him what he would be doing during that time, and he said, 'Just working on some stuff.' Since he's terrible at keeping surprises, he always tells me, 'I have something planned, but I can't tell you what it is.' And then we do this back and forth where I ask about it and he refuses to tell me. So, for the sake of his surprise to me, I will keep occasionally asking him what he's up to during his alone time." Realistic Show Jumper said, "Aw, this is so sweet. You definitely have a great husband. This post reminds me of the time my husband, who knows very little about horses and the tack used, took the time to research a specific piece of equipment I had that was showing signs of wearing out, and he special ordered a new one for me with my horse's name engraved on it. It's always amazing when they go above and beyond to do something special for us." Username checks out on that one. Natty Dread said, "This, as a husband, I love when I can bring joy to my wife too. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. It is so refreshing to read something positive about marriage on here amongst the hardships and brokenness." Another cyber citizen said, "Finally, something really wholesome and not another cheating story. I was getting demotivated of marrying my girlfriend someday by these." And OP responded, "Anger is loud. Joy and contentedness are quiet. Just because it's not commonly talked about, especially on Reddit or the internet in general, does not mean healthy relationships are rare." Well said, Pickle, and that is why this channel is here, to share the quiet, hopeful stories. Next up, there was an update posted about a month after the original post, and it says, "Brief backstory. I posted recently about how I checked the baby monitor while my son was sleeping and saw my husband sitting on the floor of my son's room finger knitting a blanket for me after I had made a comment on how I wanted a chunky blanket. My sweet husband broke. He kept on mentioning that he was working on a surprise for me. I would occasionally ask what this mysterious project was, and he would get a cheeky smile and say, "I can't tell you." That eventually evolved into him repeatedly telling me that, and keeping the surprise was really hard, and he wanted to just tell me. I kept saying, "No, you've kept it a surprise for this long. You can keep going." But one day after dinner, he decided he couldn't keep it anymore. He showed it to me. It was only about a quarter done. Okay, just to interject here, I was going to say, with this update, I was thinking, wow, this guy is a master. He made that so fast. But okay, this makes more sense. It was only about a quarter done, but it was lovely. The yarn was really soft and was my favorite color. I could tell he had taken his time because of the consistency of all the loops. Even unfinished, it was perfect. He told me that he kept moving it around to different hiding spots, but since our house is very small, it was only a matter of time before I accidentally found it. He said he had run out of yarn and asked if I wanted to pick out another color to add to it. I said yes, and we made a little date out of it. We grabbed lunch and then walked around the craft store before I picked out a complementary color to the one he chose. He hasn't had much time to work on it in the past few days, but he assured me it will be finished by my birthday. I'll post a picture of the blanket when it's finished. For now, I am wildly impressed with how long he kept it a secret, and I'm so excited to have my first ever handmade blanket. To that, Hobbit guy said, "This is so cute, I am now clinically deceased." Fortune-telling boobs said, "I died of cuteness and was resurrected, but then died of cuteness again." Shakespearean Shadows said, "I got a cavity." And there you have it, dear listener. I hope that you found this story as sweet as these commenters did, but, brush your teeth. And if you've made it this far, drop a yarn emoji down below, or just let us know what you thought. Have you ever tried finger knitting? Would you ever try finger knitting? I want to know. Now this story comes to us from the Pointless Stories subreddit, and I'll just interject to say that I don't think that this story is pointless, but I will let you be the judge of that, and you can let us know down in the comments. It comes to us from user service Final 952. I crashed my husband's new truck yesterday, and it healed my childhood trauma. I was driving home from work yesterday when the person in front of me slammed their brakes on. I slammed as hard as I could, but I didn't make it, and I rear-ended them quite hard. The two older people in the car I hit had some light whiplash, but thank goodness no other injuries. I've never been in a car accident before with another vehicle. I have hit black ice, and I've hit a deer, but never have I been in an at-fault accident, so I was quite shaken and upset. In the whirlwind of it all, I realized I had to call my husband and tell him, and I immediately started panicking so badly I couldn't breathe or speak coherently to the firefighters, who became alarmed at the sudden panic attack. I didn't know why I was panicking so badly. No one was hurt and the damage was minimal, but I couldn't stop and I felt like I was dying. I hadn't had a chance to call my husband yet, but he works not too far from where the accident happened, and had been driving by when he's seen a red truck and realized I was standing on the side of the road. He yelled my name and came over and wrapped me in a giant hug, asking if I was okay, if anyone was hurt, and again asking multiple times if I was okay. I couldn't speak to him coherently other than sobbing that I was so sorry, and I didn't mean to, and please don't be mad at me. He is the most laid-back man I know and never gets mad, so this was out of character for me to say while sobbing. He looked at me incredulously and asked, why would he be mad? That it was just a truck, and that the most important thing is that I'm safe and okay, and that it was an accident. We talked to the police and got everything sorted out, and everything was fine. I realized later that my panicked response came from the last 2 times I was involved in an accident. Deer and black ice. Both times were before I met my husband, and the person I called was my mother. Never once did she ever ask me if I was okay, but screamed and berated me for damaging the vehicle and screaming that I would be paying for it and WTF was wrong with me and that I would get in a car accident because WTF, wouldn't I have been more careful and angry? She had to come be with me instead of doing whatever she was doing, never showing me she cared about me, always more concerned about her car and how stupid I was. I was so worried about telling my husband I crashed his truck because my panicked brain thought he loved and cared about his truck more than he cared about me. But I have to remind myself that's not my life anymore, and he's my biggest fan every day. It ended up being a happy ending to a sad day, and I'm so grateful for him. And wow. It is amazing how differently someone's reactions to us in a stressful time can affect us. It really can determine whether something can be healing or traumatizing or re-traumatizing. And really, it says so much about the person reacting and how healed they are. Every single person can individually make a huge difference in small ways. And let's see what commenters had to say. Ventilator said, I feel so happy with you, and I am so happy you and your husband have each other. It's tough to break through this all, and healing happens in so many smaller moments, but sometimes big ones as well. I've held my own partner in my arms a lot of times when the parental abuse stuff hit their emotions, and we're slowly making it through things together as well. And so happy nobody was really hurt by the accident. A car is just a car and can be replaced. You cannot. Your story is really touching, especially as someone with experiences myself, and I hope you'll feel just as safe and loved in whatever similar comes across in the future. You deserve it. Creomaga says, I did something very foolish and spent weeks with a knot of dread in my stomach. I knew I had to tell my boyfriend what I'd done. It involved something of his, and I just knew he was going to flip out. He's incredibly laid back and similar in temperament to me, so I had no basis for this quote-unquote knowledge. But I knew it in my bones, so I put it off and the situation got worse and worse. Eventually, desire to do the right thing won over this mysterious knowledge that was going to spell the end of the relationship. And I told him, fully prepared to lose him. He looked at me with a slightly raised eyebrow and asked, Is this what you've been driving yourself crazy with since April? And we solved the problem in a matter of minutes. When you're taught early on that mistakes will be punished whether you tell the truth or not, it sticks. Strawberry Heine says, Oh my, this post legitimately brought me to tears. I'm so happy for you. That you are in a loving and caring relationship, it is truly what you deserve. As someone who has similar bad experiences and panic, I can relate so much to your mind going to the worst place. Substantial Let 9909 says, Beautiful story. Thanks for sharing what a healthy relationship looks like. Bethany Flower Pots says, I'm glad you found someone who has healthy priorities. I've gone through different situations, reacting similarly to you, only to be comforted and reassured by my husband. Such an odd and healing feeling. He's curing my broken heart every time he shows up and tells me how important I am. I'm happy you and the other car people are okay, and that you got to work through some stuff. Nice to see your growth. I'm happy too, and keeping it short and simple for this one. Just a sweet little reminder of the healing powers of kindness. If you've got it in your relationship, you know. And if you don't, just remember that it is out there and you can have it too. And if you've made it this far, drop a truck or car emoji down below, or just let us know what you think. And as always, thank you for your support as this channel learns and grows. Every like, comment, and subscription helps with our mission to spread a little hope, for humanity. Catch you next time, Storytide people.
Crowd together, we can all stage a march against the powers that be and show what we can believe in a sane kind of system where people still matter and bureaucrats are grown up and don't throw tantrums. The revolution never comes through an institution. What we need is personal change and resolution, cause everybody's got a brain and story below. So dig deep for its contents, unravel the scroll, and then you'll know a little and begin to learn that this journey is a gift, but you still gotta earn your stripes and your struts and dance with the devil, cause you can't hang tin until you touch hell's kettle. I want a world where people recognize that life is a precious gift from the divine. I want to breathe fresh air and swim down rivers without fears that I might get diseases in my liver. Want to see people wake up, embrace the morning, smile at the skylights even when it's storming, cause every moment's precious, though life may hurt, but it's the pain that makes you alive and rise worse. Well, you can get it, all that money and green, but it never adds up enough to make peace. Trying to fill up the empty space you couldn't complete. So repeat after me and walk in your own groove to the cadence of the drum beat. 1, 2, 1, 2. What do we need?
When I was pregnant with my daughter, I spent a couple of nights sleeping upright in a chair in a hospital with my grandmother, and my feet swelled up to the size of baby dolphins. I had flip-flops that were the only things I could fit on my piglet feet, and one day, as I was walking up out of the subway, my flip-flop strap burst open. I was nowhere near a flip-flop shop. About a kilometer walk from where I was going, enormously pregnant and hormonal, and I sat on a wall and cried. A cyclist stopped and approached me, asking what had happened. He turned out to be an OB/GYN who had seen the size of me and thought I was in labor. And when he saw my sad shoe, he wiped out his medical bag from his bicycle basket, removed a sterile needle and some thread, and sewed the thing back together. Completely saved my day. And this story of a random act of kindness was brought to us by a cyber citizen. Hearing about strangers stopping to help one another, maybe especially in grumpy New York, definitely gives me the warm fuzzies. And there's something about the added serendipity of a qualified stranger, like a doctor, being at the right place at the right time to help that makes it even warmer and fuzzier. And hey, I know that the world is pretty cray-cray, so why not subscribe and hear more true stories from across the web that'll give you some hope for humanity like this one. One time while I was a freshman in high school, I was wearing heels that I had no business being in. Anyway, the heel broke and I was completely mortified. One of my teachers suggested I take it down to the shop class, and sure enough, they were more than happy to help put my hobbled footwear back together. This story was brought to us by SP87, Spadey7. I was honestly unsure about this one because I don't find it particularly relatable, really. But sometimes the most popular stories on this channel are the ones that I'm kind of on the fence about. So if you hated the story, let me know in the comments. And if you loved this story, let me know in the comments. And if you're just like, meh, this story lacked any emotional oomph and I don't care, well, you can let me know that too. I'll definitely be sharing more tearjerkers than this one in the future too. I live in Michigan, but I grew up in Canada. 2 years ago, my father was diagnosed with cancer and was given 6 months. Wanting to make good use of what time he had left, I started traveling to Canada every weekend. After a few months, the Canadian customs officer asked me why I was suddenly traveling to Canada quite often, so I told him about my father. He handed back my passport, wished me a good trip, and said, "Remember, God can perform miracles." Personally, I don't believe in God, but nevertheless was profoundly touched by his words. I could tell he had strong faith, and whether or not I agree with him, you have to respect this level of sincerity. This story was brought to us by Mojo Pokey Blue. I wonder if the customs officer was wondering about something shadier. In the end, though, it was the thought and intention behind his words that counts. It can be hard to have hope in times of grief, and kind words can go a long way. If you hated this story, let me know in the comments. And if you loved this story, let me know in the comments. In any case, come back soon, because I'm sure that you could use some hope for humanity. And that is what this channel is all about. I've been writing in this notebook for the past few months, and the binding is annoying. So I pulled out an older spiral notebook to write in last night. The last entry was December of last year, 2021. I was optimistic, but still struggling in a few major areas of my life: money, career, and romantic relationships. I was no longer in deep trouble financially, but I had nothing in the bank. I had a career I enjoyed, but was barely making enough to live and with no advancement opportunities. And I was burned out. I was a teacher for many years. I was single and had been for a long time after my previous relationship where I was engaged. And I found really no success in even short relationships since then. Within the past year, I changed careers and have a job I literally love. I met the one, and we have a relationship I'm truly proud of. I have some padding in the bank and know what I'm doing financially, so I can be secure in what I will never again have money troubles like I went through over the past few years. 3 major sectors of my life that are not only in a great place, but confidently and securely so. I got to look back and see myself tick those boxes. I was just talking about this on the phone with my partner, who has also gone through a similar experience. Yes, it takes a lot. We just need that initial momentum. This story comes to us from Urionje? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I will say, life can be hard. Life is hard. Have you ever felt like everything is stacked against you? Maybe like you're living life on hard mode and it is unrelenting. I know I have. The older and wiser I get, the more the saying, "this too shall pass," has meaning for me. Like the hard stuff. It won't last forever. Even if you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, it is there. Dear Storytide people, if there is still breath in your lungs, you are not done. And today could be the first day of the rest of your life. Let this story be a reminder to keep going. Think about the unimagined horizons that are ahead for you. When my friend and I, both Canadian, backpacked through Scotland for 2 months, we had to do it on the cheap, and so had a 2-man tent to sleep in. It could barely fit us, let alone our packs. We had met 4 people along the West Highland Way, a father and his 10-year-old son, and a couple in their 50s. All 4 were Scottish. After hiking for the last 3 days together, we finally hit the end at Fort William, exhausted, but proud. We hugged and high-fived. The older couple slipped around the corner while we were talking to the father and son, and made a few phone calls. We thought nothing of it until they came and talked to us. A friend of their friend had a 30-foot camper caravan thingy in the big campground at the foot of Ben Nevis, which we hoped to climb that week. They had called him up and let us know we were allowed to stay there for as long as we wanted, for free. We spent a week there waiting for good weather and met so many cool people there. That made our trip so awesome. and we thanked them profusely. We bought movies to watch to pass the rainy days and left them a note thanking the owners and left the place super clean. Scottish people rule. They bought us drinks and dinner the whole time we were on the hike. And the father and son even got us a hotel room one night along the hike. I don't know how to contact them now, but I would love for them to know that was the best 2 weeks of the trip. Wherever you guys are, please continue to rock on. This one comes to us from The Meat. And I think it's a great example of why it's important for young people, and all people really, to travel. In a way, meeting kind strangers from other places makes the world smaller and certainly less scary. There are friends to be had everywhere. Remember that. I'm gonna consider this random because I barely knew this guy when he did this. When I was 18 on Christmas Eve, one of my close childhood friends OD'd and passed away while I was at work. My manager came outside and found me crying and just hugged me so tight, had no idea what had happened. When I finally told him, he held me and cried with me. I didn't have family that lived near me at the time, so it meant the world. I think about him a lot because to this day, I've never had a manager or a coworker even that I felt so close to. I'd only met him like twice before then. He happened to get called in that night. He let me go home paid and made sure I had a friend to take me home and be with me. I don't know. I'll never forget the amount of love I felt in one of my saddest moments. This story comes to us from science fiction. Oof, sometimes the kindness we receive is bittersweet, right? Somehow, I'm imagining the storyteller here working in fast food. I don't know for sure if that's true or not, just a guess. And a lot of people look down on fast food workers. But I can say, there is a special camaraderie amongst blue-collar workers. And if you hated this story, let us know in the comments. If you loved this story, let us know in the comments. In any case, be sure to subscribe because I bet that you could use some hope for humanity. And this channel is all about sharing stories from across the web full of hope for humanity. Like this one. This isn't really random, but it's the nicest thing a stranger ever did for me. My father was ill for 11 years. Lung disease, Hep C, and diabetes. It was a slow, agonizing decline. He was a musician, always had a smile on his face, and loved to make you laugh. Cool as hell, too. I was given the call that he was gonna die while I was at work. I raced to the hospital. I was numb and thinking, is it really going to happen? He's had some close calls. I get to the hospital and see him in the bed put under with morphine. Nurse says he can't get his breath and he was panicking, so they had to put him under. His lungs are giving out. It's just her and I'm standing at the end of the bed as she tends to him. What she just said to me is working its way through my defense system of emotional detachment from years of hospital visits and scary moments at home. I realized my hero is gonna die very soon. My head lowers as I tried to hold back my emotions while the nurse is there. Realizing my grief, she comes to me with tears in her eyes and whimpers, "Oh," and gives me the most meaningful hug I have ever received. At a time where I was so vulnerable, this woman filled me with so much love. It was beautiful. I wish I could have thanked her. And this story comes to us from Iltech. And sometimes, story-tied people, the stories that bring us hope for humanity are bittersweet. The healing work that nurses do extends far beyond just the body. Nurses do really important and tough work. I, for one, sure am grateful for them. My coworker helped me with an oil change on my motorcycle, but he only put the oil plug in finger tight. As I was driving home, I noticed my back tire slipping out. Not sure what was happening, I foolishly kept gunning it and nearly bailed before I realized I was leaking oil. I pulled over and all the remaining oil gushed out I was lucky to not have unalived myself or blown up my engine. This lady and her young son in a small pickup pull over to help. I didn't flag them down. She offers to help and wanted to lift the bike into her truck and give me a lift home. I'm thinking she's crazy and there's no way the two of us can lift it in. She insisted we try, and she was quite, let's say, strong looking. So I agreed to attempt it, but it was too heavy for us. So she gets on the phone, calls her brother who lived nearby, and he shows up with a buddy. The four of us lift the bike into the pickup and drive back to his place since he happens to be a mechanic. He searches for 20 minutes and finds an oil plug that fits, tops me up with oil and sends me on my way and refuses any money for the oil. It totally made my day that they took the time to help me without even being asked. Since I knew where they lived, I went back the next week and dropped off a case of beer on their front porch with a thank you note. This story comes to us from For Crying Out Loud. This one hits, you know? It's stories just like this one that are really the reason that this channel started. Stories of people being awful are just so much more commonplace. I get it. The drama is enticing. But personally, I need more hope for humanity. Like in this story of strangers going out of their way to help someone. When I was bike touring in the US, I went to pay for breakfast and was told by the waiter that my bill was already paid for. The kind person had made the waiter promise not to say who it was. Secret free breakfast. And this little tidbit of a random act of kindness comes from Colin. Okay, so buying a stranger's breakfast in the grand scheme of things is so small, but it's so sweet. There's some stigma around eating out by yourself. I know some people who get really anxious about it, and so they just don't do it. There was a point where I had to work up to it myself, worrying that people would be negatively judging me. Well, actually, while eating out alone during one of those times, someone bought my meal and the waiter told me they'd done it because they thought I was cute. It felt so good and was a really nice way to be proven wrong. And dear listener, why do you think that the breakfast donor wanted to be anonymous in this story? Let me know what you think. I remember my freshman quarter at Cal Poly, I was dealing with a lot of loneliness and depression. Just not having a good time of it at all. I remember one bad night I drove to the local Safeway to grab some food. I had been crying earlier, looked terrible, and was just an all-around mess. The checkout lady asked if I had one of those discount cards and mentioned it would save me $3 or $4 on my purchases. I shook my head, prepared to pay full price. After a quick glance at me, I think she realized I was having a bad day and swiped in a card code real quick. That little discount was the most trivial act of kindness I can ever remember getting, but it meant so much to me. After a long time of feeling alone, unnoticed, uncared for, to feel like one person gave an F, I got back to the truck and just sat, crying, because the nice gesture was the most kindness that I had seen in a while. It turned my day around and brightened me up quite a lot. I know I've had other random acts of kindness happen to me, but this one stuck in my mind as the top one. This story comes to us from Raptor Princess. And I think that this story, in so many ways, really epitomizes why this channel exists. Just to remind people that you really don't know what anyone is going through, so just, if you can, do the nice thing, because it has ripple effects, and it does make a difference. And we want to know about your random acts of kindness. Have you ever experienced something like this? The most heartwarming thing I've witnessed was when I adopted a dog from a shelter. Seeing a scared and timid animal transform into a happy and loving life buddy was truly touching. Still makes me cry thinking about it. This one comes to us from Independent Dig, and it is so relatable. I mean, we all know that many of you are here because of how cute the dog is on this channel, and she's a rescue who has warmed my heart just like that. she's come such a long way. And I like to think of it as an example of how far kindness and patience can go. We all could use it, just like the doggo in this story. If you hated this story, let us know in the comments. And if you loved this story, let us know in the comments. In any case, be sure to subscribe, because I bet you could use a little hope for humanity. And we post videos like this every day. Once when I was like 9 years old, I was walking with my mom and 2 of my brothers. I tried to race a car that was coming up beside us in our neighborhood. Just dumb kid shit, I don't know. Naturally, I didn't do very well, but the old lady driving the car stopped, got out, and gave me this giant, to 9-year-old me, bag of candy, and told me that my running was impressive, and that if I practiced more, I could do even better. So sometimes, when I feel like nothing I do is going to go anywhere, I just remember that and remind myself that while I may not be as fast as a car, if I practice more, I can get better than I was yesterday. This story was brought to us by Alternative Shadows, and okay, so I know what you're thinking. Don't take candy from strangers, kids. And that's not wrong. We're not trying to sugarcoat things here on this channel. But I don't think that's the moral of this story. I think we can see it as encouragement to keep going when things are tough, when you're not an expert yet. Keep practicing. You will get better. And strangers can be kind. I myself have a few childhood memories like this that are just pure and joyful, and help keep me going when things get tough. Do you have childhood memories like in this story? Let us know in the comments below. I work at a Taco Bell, and a few nights ago we had a homeless man come in and sit down, not ordering anything. About an hour later, another customer came up and asked me if he had had anything to eat. When I told him he hadn't, he immediately ordered the man 3 tacos and our largest drink, and left. When I delivered his food, he looked so genuinely surprised and cheered up. I didn't get free tacos, but my faith in humanity was restored, and my day was made. This story comes to us from an anonymous cyber citizen. And when you live in a world where the economy is so terrifyingly tough that you and your friends are one or a few paychecks away from sitting hungry in Taco Bell, you need daily doses of hope for humanity. So remember to subscribe, because this channel is all about sharing stories to bring you some hope for humanity. It was almost Christmas in Manhattan, which is a dreadful time. The city gets crowded with droves of people who don't know how or where to walk. Normally, I'm very understanding of these kind folks who come deal with city inconvenience to do some shopping, but today, I hated them. I went to my favorite diner, the Brooklyn Diner on 57, sat at the bar and ordered. It was crowded with out-of-towners, and they were all talking to each other. These really friendly, happy conversations that made me sick. I buried my face in a chicken pot pie and did my best to ignore them. As we were sitting there, I heard a couple at the bar whisper to the waiter that they would like to buy dinner for everyone in the restaurant at that moment. It's not a cheap diner. They might have taken out a mortgage. They asked to remain anonymous, but I overheard them say that everyone here was just so nice and they'd had such a wonderful time in New York. They were from Texas. Sure, it may have been dirty oil money that bought my chicken pot pie that night, but damn, I felt like such an a-hole for ignoring them and being unfriendly. They were genuine, kind people. Once I got over my guilt, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and compassion for everyone out there blocking my way on the street. And I try to pay that one forward every now and then. This one comes to us from Monkeys Ate My Barf. Okay, so I usually try to skip any stories with stereotypes. We really don't know that all Texans have oil money, or that New Yorkers are grumpy. But I did get a little bit of a chuckle from this grumpy New Yorker, and in the end, this story warmed my heart. And it is my hope that it will bring you a little hope for humanity. This happened years ago, but it still warms my heart. I'm a bartender at a restaurant and a lady comes in by herself and is having a drink before her meal. She says she wants to pay for a specific drink, but she doesn't want me to make it for her. She had me add a dirty Grey Goose martini with blue cheese olives to her tab. She then told me this is her first time in without her husband, who had passed away, and that was his favorite drink. Whoever was the next person to come in and order that, it was on her. Fast forward to a couple hours later, a group of ladies come in together. One of them orders a Grey Goose dirty martini with blue cheese olives. I tell her it's been paid for and why. She tears up a little bit, and one of her friends says that she, the lady who got the free drink, had also recently lost her husband. They all thought it was meant to be, and it gave us all goosebumps. Needless to say, we all were tearing up. This story was brought to us by Work Story. Serendipity. Whether it was meant to be or just a random chance coincidence. It's really beautiful that these two women, each grieving such a huge loss, in a way were able to provide each other comfort. It's the little things, that make this human experience that can sometimes be so tough a little bit easier. Have you ever experienced something like this?
One grocery week when I was in college, I had my card declined. This was a bit of a problem as the kitchen was entirely out of food and I wasn't going to be paid for another week. It was really awkward being at the front of the line with $100 worth of groceries, having a hasty conversation with my girlfriend about how we were going to deal with this. Well, the guy behind us in line offered to pay for our groceries. I tried to talk him down, but he insisted and I was feeling really awkward holding up the line. I thanked him profusely and he told me word for word, just pay it forward if you ever get the chance. Ever since, I've been jamming $1 or $2 into every donation box I see, tipping an extra 5%, giving my change to the homeless, and otherwise looking for opportunities to pay it forward.
This story comes to us from Synthesizer Toady. Love this. There are a lot of these pay it forward stories around that I've seen. When you have the means to do something like this, it has ripple effects and can go a long way. And, of course, we don't always have the means to do this kind of thing. I know I've been in the shoes of the storyteller here. Still, we can do small acts of kindness for one another that won't cost us money. And this channel is here to remind us all that there is hope for humanity by sharing stories like this one. Great story. Once, when I was very young, let's say 6 years old, I was wrestling with my little brother in the front seat of my dad's truck while he was inside a store returning a movie. The truck was a stick shift and parked at the top of a very steep hill. One of us kicked the emergency brake, disengaging it, and the truck began to roll forward. I saw that we were rolling right for the hill and going to crash, but I was too scared and too young to know what to do. Suddenly, some guy appears out of nowhere, runs up to the car, opens the door, and puts down the e-brake, stopping the truck from rolling. He never said a word to us. I can't remember if I said thank you or not. This story comes to us from D420 Down. Okay, so before you come at me, I keep the integrity of the stories I find and don't change how they're written. I do know how to spell break, and besides, if that's what you saw, try listening again. This is the story of a real-life superhero saving some little boys. But really, is this why they stopped making stick shifts? We were in the shower, our first sleepover. He slipped, grabbed the shower curtain, ripped it down while he fell over the edge of the tub and landed on his back. We were both so embarrassed. We will be married 30 years in July. This story comes to us from T.L. Oliver, and it sure does leave a lot to be imagined. But I'm starting to notice a pattern
amongst these early dating stories is the key to a lasting relationship to embarrass yourself as much as possible early on. Sometimes I think of this channel as kind of a chick flick channel, but for your ears and for everyone. It's just like full of stories meant to give you the warm fuzzies like this one, because we all could use a little hope for humanity. My cat detects when I'm sad. I don't know how, but she will hunt me down, plop herself right next to me, give me lovey-dovey eyes, and purr extra loud. Eventually, she will cast a spell or something on me and boom, I'm fast asleep. It happens all the time. This story comes to us from I Chug Lives Memes. This is so sweet. My cat is also extra cuddly, and she does cuddle with me a lot. But I don't think it's for quite as selfless reasons as the cat in this story. Cats. Anyways, I hope that this story warmed your heart a little bit and gave you a little break from any doom and gloom in your life or the news or the world in general. My 9-year-old told me a few days ago that he will always love me the most, more than his girlfriend and his wife. He whispered the last sentence so his significant other from the future wouldn't hear him say it. This one comes from Ana Costa. This story is really cute, and I'm sharing it here with you today because I hope it will give you a small moment to laugh and warm your heart a little as you take a break from any doom and gloom in your life. A few months ago, I was crying while making dinner because my grandfather was very ill and near death. My then 6-year-old son observed me crying and offered to do a chore to help me feel better. Then my 8 and 4-year-old sons offered to hug me and wanted to know about my grandfather. They treated me how I treat them when they're sad, and it just meant the world to me. And this one comes to us from Squishy Buns. What a good mama, teaching her kiddos that it's okay to cry and show your feelings, that grief is normal, and for having shown them so much love whenever they were sad that they know how to be kind and gentle when someone else is sad. And less obvious is, this is why we should be nice to mean people, because they're the ones who didn't learn this from their parents. How we treat one another ripples out like a pebble in a pond, and we can always make the choice to be like these kiddos. Many years ago, I was visiting family in a third world country with my mom. There, hospitals will not provide any sort of treatment prior to receiving payment. There was a girl about my age there that had TB, and her mom was begging anyone who would listen for money. They were from outside the city, had driven a long way to get to the hospital, and could not afford the medicine she needed. We didn't have enough money on us at the time, so my mom took us home, went to the bank, got cash, about $150, drove back to the hospital, tracked the lady down, and paid for the girl's treatment. It took my mom about 2 hours to do all of that, and in that time, nobody had helped the woman and her daughter. I felt really proud to be my mother's daughter that day. This one comes from Wannabe Me. John Green, where you at? If you see this, let's be friends. But that aside, I know that sometimes we can become desensitized to seeing people in need, especially if we live in a place where there's a lot of people in need. I think that's a thing, becoming desensitized to it. And I'm not saying that we always have the resources to give money to those in need. Life is tough, life is nuanced, but I hope this story reminds you of some of the good in humanity and warm your heart a little bit. I was walking down Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras with a friend when I saw 2 guys pushing up on a girl and heard, "But you're alone, right?" "I'm waiting on some friends." I immediately stopped dead in my tracks and decided to be whoever she was waiting for. Don't knock your brain, because sometimes it truly is a superpower. This story comes to us from Magic Master.
and it's a funny one. And what they're talking about here is, for the ADHDers out there, is following your intuition, following your impulses, because sometimes it doesn't feel like a superpower to do impulsive things, but sometimes it can save the day, like it did in this story. I moved to a new city and jumped on Tinder, hoping, obviously, for a relationship, but thinking at least it'd be good to get to know someone in this new city. So I messaged this girl who seemed fun. I don't mean that as just a euphemism, and pretty quickly arranged a date. Come the night of the first date, I get lost trying to find the place. New city is much bigger than my home. I get texts from her asking if I'm standing her up, and I'm like, no, I'm just lost. So she gives me some directions. I walk into the place and tell her, I'm here. That's not the place. She gives me some more directions and I actually find the place. We start talking and the conversation is flowing well, but with my nerves, I tell the story, then shortly after, I start telling the same story again. She points out that I already told the story and I am absolutely mortified. And she starts talking the piss 6 years later and she still takes the piss out of me every day. I try to mess with her, but she has this ungodly ability to know when I'm talking shh. She also knows exactly how to push my humor buttons by doing weird shh. I've never laughed so much with a girlfriend before. And this story comes to us from Salsamore Vincent. 6 years! I think this guy and this girl got really lucky. I have never heard the term talking the piss or taking the piss. I think that's British. If you have heard it or you know more about it, let me know. I'm curious to know about other places and other cultures. It seems like when the timing is right, it's right to meet someone. And I find that to be heartwarming, moving to a new city and meeting someone who you kind of immediately fall in love with, like in this story. I work as a bus monitor, mostly with special needs kids. One day, I subbed in for another monitor, and there was this little girl in a wheelchair. Sweet as could be. Pre-K or kindergarten. She could talk, but she had a cleft palate and was a little hard to understand, especially as little as she was. A few weeks later, I'm walking through a pet store, and I see this girl walking with a walker. She looked so familiar, but I couldn't place her. Then her mom said her name, and it clicked. It was her. So I went and said hello, asked if she rode a school bus, asked if she rode bus whatever, and when she said yes, I asked if she remembered me. Her face lit up in a big smile, and the mom said, "She's gonna want a hug now." And she started to walk over towards me and gave me the biggest hug her tiny self could give. Absolutely stole my heart. A couple years later, I'm on her bus again. She's chatting away, asking me all kinds of questions. She asked me if I had kids. When I said I did not, she looked befuddled. She asked, "Why not?" And I told her I wasn't ready. She kept saying I should have kids. So I asked her why, and she said, "Because you would be a good dad." And I almost effing cried. I didn't have the best example of a father, and I'm always afraid I'd be like him. But hearing that come from this sweet girl meant the world to me. This story comes to us from Clown. I can relate to that feeling of seeing someone you don't know very well out of context. It can take a moment for the brain to catch up. I think it's always so cool seeing a kid grow up this way. In a way, it's kind of almost like stop motion. You see them grow up in different frames. And I think, as per usual, kids are such great examples of just how to be nice to people. So grown-ups, let this be your reminder to be nice like this kid. I'm going through a tough time. My mother is unwell, my salary has been delayed, and I'm in a lot of debt. On top of that, I found out I can't get pregnant, something that's been really hard to come to terms with emotionally. It's been a lonely, heavy phase of life. Today, while commuting back from work in a shared taxi, a common rideshare system in Mumbai, India, I realized I was 5 short. Drivers here usually don't accept digital payments. I turned to the woman sitting beside me and asked if she had 5. I told her I'd pay her online immediately. She handed it to me without hesitation. When I insisted on returning it, she refused. I asked 5 times. She just smiled warmly. That one small act of kindness broke something in me. When I got down at my stop, she waved goodbye, and I just broke down in tears. It might seem like nothing, but that moment, her warmth, her kindness, gave me a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, it's okay to wait a little longer. Maybe things will get better. This one comes to us from One Satisfaction. Whew. And it is a heavy one. Life can be really hard. Sometimes it feels like it's one thing after another. I know that I've been there. And that's why this channel is here, to help us remember to be kind to one another. Because a small act of kindness to another, you never know the effect that it's going to have. Just like in this story. We adopted a cat that turned up at our house a few months back. The other day, he stole a sausage off my plate. I chased him around the garden with the sausage hanging out of his mouth. He used every trick in the book to avoid me. He got that sausage all to himself in the end. We have discovered he is a food fiend and will eat anything and everything. He has learned how to open Tupperware containers, peel off cling film from leftovers, and even does tricks for food. Little Chunk is a legendary beast of a cat. And this little heartwarming tale is brought to us by One Mind. And come on, I think it just speaks for itself how cute and heartwarming this is. I mean, annoying, obviously, but it's kind of probably like similar to what grandparents experience, where you get to witness the chaos from afar, but you don't have to deal with it yourself. I mean, I wouldn't want a cat like this, but I love hearing about a cat like this. When I was in elementary school, we would do our school fundraising, which was selling candy bars. It was simpler times. So I knocked on a stranger's door and asked if they wanted to buy one. He asked what my favorite one was, and I told him. He bought the candy and then gave it to me. It was a small act of kindness, but now, if I get the chance, I pass along the experience to other fundraising kids. This story was brought to us by Inform the Men. Simpler times indeed. Kids these days don't do that anymore. It does low-key give me the heebie-jeebies thinking about it. And that, friends, is why I share these stories, because we all could use a little hope for humanity. And this story exemplifies how one kind act can ripple out for a lifetime. When my oldest niece was barely over a year old, she was visiting my parents with her mom from out of town. My wife and I came over to visit. My niece had been playing pretty hard with my dad, which was cute. But she noticed a sunbeam on the floor. She spent half an hour pretending to hand my dad sunshine from that little patch of light before she lost interest. This story was brought to us by Kichigai, and I hope that this sweet, sweet image of love between a granddaughter and her grandpa warms your heart a little today. If you hated this story, let us know in the comments. And if you loved this story, let us know in the comments. In any case, I bet you could use a little hope for humanity. So remember to subscribe. We post videos like this every day. About 15 years ago, I drove an 87 Audi bought from a used car lot for $1,200. While super cute, it was a piece of crap. One night, I went out to dinner with a friend who lived about an hour away from me. We got to talking and stayed up really late. So it was around 4 a.m. by the time I left her house and headed home on the interstate. There was some road construction, and I went over a bump. My tailpipe came completely off of the muffler, dragging on the ground, causing a trail of sparks and an awful grinding sound in addition to the engine noise from lack of muffling. I pulled off to the side of the road,
This was before cell phones were as common as they are now, and I didn't have one yet. I was faced with having to walk at least a couple miles for help, wearing a dressy outfit and the wrong shoes for walking in the cold. Add to that the fact that I'm about 5'2" and 100 pounds, and had no way of defending myself if I were confronted. Basically, every girl's nightmare. Sitting duck on the side of the road at night. Before I could even try to come up with a plan, someone pulled up behind me. "Hey there! Looks like you need a hand!" A really friendly guy in his early 20s hopped out of his truck. He was only up that early because deer season had started and he was meeting friends to go hunting. He got a coat hanger and suspended my tailpipe up enough so I could limp it home without dragging and sparking everywhere. He saved the day and I didn't even get his name. And this story of a random act of kindness comes from Bluegrass Queen. Okay, so keep in mind that this story is old now, so it's been more than 15 years. As notable by the lack of cell phones and the metal coat hanger relic. Times have really changed a lot very quickly in a short time, and not at all in others. In any case, I just about wanted to cry in relief for this girl. I think it depends on where in the world or the country you live. Some places, people are more likely to stop and help than others. In a case like in this story, I'm glad to hear this young man chose to do this random act of kindness.
Welcome and hello again,